Good morning, everyone. If you could get seated, we'll get started. The Congressman is on the line. We're ready to start streaming him. But if you can fill in the tables in the front, that'd be great.
Good morning. Well, good morning, everyone. I think we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Nancy Sharp, Arapahoe County Commissioner, and welcome to our first in-person meeting of the partnership. Yay! Let's keep it that way. So we can keep going with these in the future. So thanks again for being here. And we do have this this meeting virtually as well. So just wanted to let you know. And please, we're gonna go to Congressman Crow. He has kind of a tight schedule, so we dispensed with our networking at the first part of the meeting, but stick around and we'll have an opportunity to do that. This makes me feel so good to look around the room and see people that I haven't seen face to face instead of the little squares that I get to see some of you all in, and it really is good to be here. So before I introduce the Congressman, I just wanted to, as a longtime board member, and we were just talking with, about how long I have been around, which is a long time, but as a board member, is to talk a little bit about Denver South for those people that are new and coming to this in person or joining us virtually. So Denver South is both the geographical region of I-25, the I-25 corridor to the south, but the organization is the purpose of the organization is committed to the region's economic vitality and mobility options. And I think if you have just a minute, stop by back in the back here, and Cheryl can talk to you about some of the things that are going on and some of the new program that's being introduced by Denver South. And we, as we have been coming back to work this year, we see we kind of, when we were out, enjoyed not having that traffic. We're back again. So we're talking about a lot of options to help going forward now, and then going forward not only to help with the traffic congestion, but with air quality too, which we know has been, because of wildfires, has been a real problem here. So Denver South has 6 jurisdictional entities, and we've worked together for years to create and implement a vision that takes and makes Denver South one of the best places to work and live, and sometimes you say play and that gets a little trite, but there are so many, like the Lone Tree Arts Center here, and so many other things that we have that are wonderful entertainment venues, our trails, parks, all of those things in the south part of town that we love so much. So we have close to 250,000 Coloradoans that work along this Denver South corridor, and almost 15% of the Front Range workforce is just in this corridor alone. So we host these meetings every other month, so please keep checking and check with us, and you'll get a chance to see who the speakers are over years, there have been some incredibly interesting groups of people that have come from entertainment to business, new businesses coming into the area, what they are doing, what brought them here, and things like that. So I would just highly encourage anyone to keep coming and as long as we're doing virtual, join us that way as well. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce the congressman now. Congressman Jason Crow is in his second term representing the 6th Congressional District, which includes Aurora, portions of Arapahoe, Adams, and Douglas counties. And he's a member of the House Armed Services Committee and Small Business Committee. Thank you, Congressman Crow. And he serves on many other committees, and I'll let him talk to you about all the things that are important to him. He's a former Army Ranger who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. He returned to civilian life advocating for fellow veterans and was recognized for his pro bono legal work in this area. He has a wife and 2 children. And with that, I'll welcome you, Congressman Crow. Welcome.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I hope you can see me and hear me, and I think it's my turn to go. Tom just texted me to go ahead. So, Tom, do you want me to start?
Yes, please do. Congressman, yes, we can hear you and we can see you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm getting a yes.
Yes.
All right, thanks, Tom. Thank you to Nancy and the entire board of Denver South for your continued leadership, for having me here this morning to speak with you all and give you an update and take some questions. I'm going to just give a very brief update, and I'm going to reserve most of the time for questions. I'm not sure exactly how the questions are going to go on this platform. I'm assuming they'll come via text from Tom or somebody else, but we will figure it out. So I hope you're all doing well. Had a decent summer, getting ready to get kids back into school. I know we are excited, as all parents are, to get the kids back in to the classroom as quickly as possible. We have been very hard at work in Washington this summer. We've had a lot of additional vote days, a lot of additional time in DC. Of course, the biggest news and the thing that I think folks are following probably the most right now is the infrastructure deal. So the Senate did put together what I think is a very strong bipartisan infrastructure deal that is paid for, number one. Number two, makes really good investments in surface transportation, roads, bridges, but also electrical infrastructure, renewable energy infrastructure, and clean water, and a variety of really important places and investments that have been deferred for decades that are important for business development, important to address the growth that we've seen around the country, but particularly in the South Metro area and in Denver Metro as well. So this is going to be huge. I mean, we are going to benefit if we're able to get this passed, and I've been pushing hard in House leadership for us to bring this to a vote as quickly as possible and not to delay this, because we have to make sure that we're getting the funding out, that we're striking while the iron is hot from a political standpoint. We're not delaying this, because obviously in politics, as in many things, the more you delay, the more opportunities there are to have a deal derailed. We just don't want to have that happen. We are in a point right now where there is broad bipartisan agreement on this issue. And I think we have to just get it done while we can, so we can get the money flowing out to our states, to our counties, to our big infrastructure projects, get shovels in the dirt, put people to work, and actually start building this infrastructure that our country so desperately needs. And Colorado is going to get a healthy chunk of that as well. So extremely excited about that. Specifically, a few projects that I'm working on, pieces of legislation that I'm going to share with you all. Number one, I have a bill called the Next Generation Entrepreneurship Core Act. What this bill will do is create a fellowship program of 320 fellows every year. These are going to be entrepreneurs in our community and around the country, with the focus being an underserved census tract. So parts of our community that traditionally do not have business growth, that have been underserved, that are higher poverty regions and census tracts. So a group of us came together, a bipartisan and bicameral group. I came together with Troy Balderson, a Republican from Ohio, who's a friend of mine, And then on the Senate side, Chris Coons and Tim Scott joined us. So the four of us, Coons, Scott, Balderson, and myself, put this bill together. We're extremely excited about it, and one that we think will help spur entrepreneurship and help develop new businesses, grow existing businesses, and really unleash economic opportunity within our community and our country that is really latent at this point. Two other bills that I wanted to mention. One is my Cyber Awareness Act, which was actually marked up in the Small Business Committee in the last few weeks. What we know, particularly here in South Metro, is a lot of our businesses are high technology businesses, defense, aviation, aerospace businesses. They're small and medium-sized businesses, a lot of startups, and they're extremely vulnerable to cyber intrusion, cyber attack by China, adversaries, both state and non-state actors. And we have to make sure we are raising those fences and bolstering those defenses against those types of attacks that can be really the death knell for a lot of small and medium-sized businesses. So my SBA cyber awareness bill will help do that and help better protect our small businesses from those cyber attacks and those hacks. The other bill that I'm really excited about is my SBA innovation voucher bill. And as you know, I do a lot of my work on the Small Business Committee. I'm the only member of Congress from Colorado that sits in the Small Business Committee. And it's been an exciting place to be, not just because it's extremely important to me personally from an economic development and business support standpoint, but I obviously have a small business background. I was raised in a small business family. I represent this community that is largely a small business community. So being able to support and grow jobs and small businesses is extremely important. So what this Innovation Voucher Act is going to do, this is going to take particularly those startups and small businesses in the biotechnology, engineering, high-tech field that are trying to take their business to the next level, ramp up, and get through, many of you are familiar with the term the valley of death. And that's where they get the initial funding, they have the proof of concept, and then they need to scale their technology and get it through that 1 year to 18 month valley of death, as these companies call it, and scale it and take their business to the next level. So many of these businesses are unable to get through that 1 to 18 month process. So what this Voucher Act will do is it will allow those businesses to partner with research institutions, with universities, with other entities, and better qualify for grants to help them get that interim funding that they need to stay alive and to grow the business. And we think that we're going to be able to save a lot of businesses that otherwise would go out of business during that period, that have great ideas, great technology, and great growth potential. So my Innovation Voucher Act is going to help do that, and we're extremely excited. So those are just a few of the things that, from a legislative standpoint, we've been working on that impact businesses, particularly in our community. I do want to touch on some of the money I've been able to get for the district recently. One of my big roles is to try to advocate for the 6th district and get our share, hopefully more than our share in some cases, of resources to help us compete and grow and do so in a responsible way. Had great success in the last year in doing that. I've been able to bring about $20 million of infrastructure funding to the South Metro region, and I'll give you the highlights of those. This is through the transportation infrastructure funding bills. $10 million for the I-25 Bellevue interchange, which, as we all know, is a bit of a disaster at times during the day. And we have all sat at that intersection for very long periods of time. So $10 million to help address that and make some infrastructure changes to speed that up and reduce the congestion in that area. $6 million for the Centennial Eastern Havana intersection to help make improvements there, and $4 million for the Highway 85 improvement project in Douglas County as well. So very excited to announce those projects. In addition to that, close to $10 million of community project funding to help deal with the homelessness crisis that's in our community, to help deal with the mental health issues. Was able to get $2 million of funding for a domestic violence project in Adams County, and really just help some of those nonprofits and those organizations that are helping some of our most vulnerable in the areas of mental health, domestic violence, and the unhoused and others, and help relieve some of these crises that we're facing as a community so we can achieve our full potential. So those are some of the things I'm working on. I now sit on 3 committees. I think from the last time I talked to you, I was on Armed Services and Small Business. In March, I was actually appointed to the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, the Intelligence Committee, which is actually a very small, very select committee. I'm actually one of the few members of Congress that sits on both the Intel Committee and the Armed Services Committee, which actually puts me in a really great position to advocate for our community, because we know one of the biggest economic drivers in South Metro is the defense, aviation, and aerospace ecosystem and businesses. I'm going to continue to be a champion of those businesses and advocate very fully to make sure that we're growing that piece of our economic pie, that we're bringing more of those businesses, that we're increasing the opportunity for the existing ones, and also advocating for Buckley Space Force Base and our veterans at the same time as well. So excited to be able to be in a position to do that. And I continue to work hard through the National Defense Authorization Act, now the Intelligence Authorization Act, to make sure that we're supporting not just our military installations in the six, but in Colorado writ large, but also the businesses and the private industry that support our national security and our nation's defense. So I will stop there, and we will figure out how we're going to do questions here, and would love to hear from you.
Congressman, can you hear me?
All right, I'm assuming Tom's going to tell me how we're going to do this Q&A here. Oh, Tom says he thought he'd be able to hear. I cannot hear anybody. So if you want to do questions,
maybe we can.
Congressman,
can
you hear me?
Tom, I'm happy to do that.
Congressman Crow, can you hear me? Uh-oh. Yeah, can we text? Let's see. Hold on one second.
Well, I know he can't hear, but
Text.
I was going to thank him, and I will when the opportunity on
He can't hear him, I don't think.
on putting forward we had requested an earmark for Bellevue and I-25, and he mentioned it for the interchange there, and it is.
I cannot hear. No, Tom's asking whether I can hear. Yeah, my speakers are on.
So I'm going to thank him for that, because it's over $100 million project, and this helps us. It's an extremely
Tom, if you just
important
want to take questions and put them into the chat, then I can respond to them in real time. Or if people want to ask questions, then Veronica, who can text with me, can do it that way too. So we can figure out the workaround.
We'll type them in here. If anybody's got a question, keep them succinct, please. But if anybody's got a question, I'd love to get them to the congressman. Anyone have succinct questions they want to ask the congressman?
Tom, can you tell him that I personally thank him for his work on the I-25, the earmark on I-25 and Bellevue. I think that's really important to everybody who commutes through there. And any questions for the congressman?
All right, thank you, Nancy. I'm getting from Tom. Nancy mentioned the I-25 in Bellevue, so I appreciate the shout out on that. 100% couldn't agree more. This was one of our top priorities in getting the funding, and it is a challenging place to be sure. So if we can resolve that and ease that congestion, I think that is going to be not only better just for our lifestyle and reducing our commutes, but it also is going to help an entire hub there. As we're well aware, that's a huge hub for business growth, and we have to relieve that congestion to allow some of that growth to continue. So will continue to be a priority of mine.
Thank you.
Timelines. The next question is timeline on the infrastructure bill in the House and your expectations. All right, so I don't know. It's the short answer. I will tell you what I do know. So the Senate passed it a couple of days ago with a very large majority, a bipartisan majority, which was a great sign of, I think, the process that they used, which I think was a fair one and a collaborative one. So what's going to happen now is they actually called, so we're supposed to be, and we are in what's called our district work period. So back in the districts and back in Colorado, doing our work here, they actually are calling us back on the 23rd, the week of the 23rd for votes. So we're actually going to vote on a bunch of procedural votes and rules that will tee up the vote on the actual bill itself. So the question is, and I don't know this, whether we will vote on just the procedural issues and the things we need to vote on beforehand on the week of the 23rd, or if we're actually going to vote on the underlying bill, or if we're going to wait and combine the infrastructure vote with the broader reconciliation bill, which some of the House leadership has indicated they want to do. My perspective is it just needs to be done, and it needs to be done fast, because we obviously have some contentious budget debates that are going to have to happen in September and October. So like I said before, I want to get this done and out of the way and off our plate. A, because it's good for the country, and we just need to get the money flowing and get these projects going. But B, because we have our hands full in September, October, trying to finalize the other budget negotiations and the other issues. And I don't want to have those kind of converge, because I just think that would be very problematic. Update on Space Force and keeping it in Colorado. Yeah, thanks for that question. So a couple of notes. Number one, it was a great thing that Buckley was renamed a Space Force base. That actually is an indication that the Air Force and Space Force and DoD broadly recognize the importance of Buckley and that there's a huge future. I do think there's going to be growth. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's going to be some future growth at Buckley. We have the space for it. We have the community support for it. So I'm going to continue to work hard with all of you and the other stakeholders and pushing from the Armed Services and the Intelligence Committee side to continue to grow tenant units and capacity at Buckley. So here's where we are on Space Force, or Space Command, rather. So I know the question was Space Force, but actually it's Space Command that we're talking about, which is a COCOM, a coordinating command, and that's different from Space Force. Space Command, which is the coordinating command that's currently at Colorado Springs. The last administration said they were going to move that to Alabama. There is unanimous agreement with the Colorado delegation that process was not an open and transparent one, and we have extreme concerns about the politics that may have played in that decision, and not just because of some indicators as to how that decision was made, but also it just doesn't make sense for national security. We actually think the infrastructure, the ecosystem, really the best place by almost every measure to have this command is in Colorado. We actually made the case for Buckley. We wanted to be in Buckley. We didn't make that final cut. So we did what we all should do, is come together and say, all right, it's got to be in Colorado then, because we will still benefit from that to a large measure. Where we are now, there are 2 investigations going on. There's a GAO investigation and an IG investigation about the basing process. Those investigations will continue. I joined with Adam Schiff, who's the chairman of the Intelligence Committee. Michael Bennett joined with Senator Warner, who's the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. We have sent letters to the Director of National Intelligence asking them to do a comprehensive assessment as to the basing process and indicating it should stay in Colorado. So we are going to continue to work hard on that, and we'll keep you apprised. Can you all still hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Can you see us?
So there's a lot going on. Is the bottom line on Space Committee. All right, Mike Sutherland, thanks for the funding of Project Urbana. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Appreciate the shout out there, and thanks for your work.
Any other questions?
All right, that's all for questions. All right, thanks, folks. Well, be well, be safe. I know we're all dealing with the concerns around the Delta variant here, and which we're all concerned about, given that where we are on the recovery and kind of the rebound. So we want to make sure that we're getting our arms around that. So look forward to working with all of you. My door, my phone lines are always open. So if there's anything we can do, to support you all, we share mutual goals and kind of building out business and business growth in South Metro to increase prosperity and grow jobs. And I very much want to continue to be a partner with you all in that. So thank you for the opportunity. Have a good rest of your breakfast and be well, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Sorry for the difficulties. It seems to be working on our end. We're not sure what issue the Congressman was having, but it seems to be that we seem to be transmitting. I'm not sure why it wasn't being
And we do thank you all for bearing with us. This is our first hybrid event, so a couple tweaks to be figured out. Thank you, Nancy, for welcoming everyone and introducing the Congressman. I'm Chris Shepard with Denver South, and I want to welcome the next two speakers up. As you heard Congressman Crow talk about infrastructure, we wanted to focus a little bit more on what's happening with especially broadband and internet infrastructure in Denver South. And that's why we invited two of the employers in Denver South, Comcast, which is the largest employer in Denver South, and Ting, who is doing a local internet project within the city of Centennial. So we wanted to highlight jobs, projects, growth, all the connectivity that's happening here in the region. So I want to welcome Monica Webb from Ting. Monica I'm very impressed by her. She has been on the road for 14 of the past days. She hasn't been home yet, I don't think. Not quite 14, but close. And then she has to fly to Toronto and then drive 6 hours tonight. So very impressive. Her background is very impressive. She's worked for Ting as Senior Director of Market Development and Strategic Partnerships since they first entered the fiber broadband business in 2014. She moved to Western Massachusetts in 2002 and joined a handful of tech-savvy Western Massachusetts residents in spearheading efforts to create a regional municipal fiber to the premises network in towns that were unserved by broadband. So we all are hearing about the gap in broadband delivery across the United States. So I think Monica's background really will speak to that and what Ting is able to do. So they created in Western Massachusetts Wired West that enables municipalities to individually or jointly finance, build, and operate telecommunications networks. So that's kind of what Ting is doing in Centennial. At Ting, Monica works with local stakeholders in existing towns and evaluates existing and prospective gigabit network locations and related business projects. So Monica, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for that introduction, and nice to meet everybody. Really excited to be here today. It has been a bit of a whirlwind week. I just came from Keystone. Actually, we were at a conference there earlier this week, and a couple weeks ago I was in Nashville. So I've had a small break in between, but there has been a lot of travel. So thanks for having us. So today I'm just Christine actually peppered me with a few questions, things that everybody here wanted to hear about. Hopefully I can figure out this. Forward is the red arrow on this? The green arrow. Green arrow's forward? Yes. There we go. Okay. So I thought I would start by just giving you a little bit of background about Ting Internet. Some of you may have heard of us. We're in Centennial. Some of you may have not, so I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into us. Ting's parent company, Two Cows, was founded in 1993 in Flint, Michigan, as an internet startup at the time. And at that time, it had a singular goal, and that was to provide easy and affordable access to freeware and shareware updates to software. And if you recall back, for those of you that were around at that time, if you hearken back to that time, when you wanted to do a software update, you had to pay for, the download was incredibly slow. If it was long distance, you had to pay for that. So Two Cows, the whole concept of founding the company was we had relationships with web service companies and ISPs around the world. They would download the shareware from us, and then they would mirror it to their local businesses and residents so that people didn't have to pay the long distance, so it was a much faster download and more affordable. And the spirit of that endeavor, which is making the internet and related services more accessible, has remained a core business value for Two Cows and has really driven what we've done as we've expanded into other businesses. Today we're the second largest domain registrar in the world behind GoDaddy. You may not have heard our name though because we are mostly wholesale, but if you bought a domain through Shopify or Vistaprint, it would actually be us in the background. We also then got into mobile phone service in 2012, and within a couple of years, we were actually rated by Consumer Reports as the top company for customer service in the United States for cell phone provision. And that's really something else that is a core capacity for us that differentiates us from others. And then in 2014, we looked around and we said, is there somewhere else where the relationship between service provider and customer is very challenged? And that was the provision of internet access. So today, we are, fast forward today, Tucows is a publicly traded company. We have 900 plus employees around the world. We have the strongest presence we have is in the U.S., where we have 13 Ting internet cities from sort of coast to coast. We're Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, Idaho, California, and of course here in Colorado we're both in Centennial, and then we have a number of locations on the western slope, in Roaring Fork area, and then going right down to southwest into Durango along I-70, and then we have a few locations in New Mexico as well. Tucows is a publicly traded company today as well on the NASDAQ. So a little bit more about what, sort of what Ting Internet stands for that makes us different from others. First off, we're using next generation technology to deliver internet access and any other services that you get over that particular pipe. And the reason that's important is this is, it's a strand the width of a human hair that to this point has still not, even in labs, been had the capacity overwhelmed. It is going to be the best technology for now and in future. It is the basis for any wireless technologies. I do routinely get the question, what about wireless? There are no wires, isn't that great? Absolutely. The best wireless networks have fiber underneath them and the wireless sits on top. Today when you use your cell phone, it's broadcasting between your phone and a tower, and that tower is connected by fiber. So all of our customers have fiber right into their homes or right into their businesses. The other thing is outstanding customer support. When you call our customer support, a human being answers the phone. There are no phone trees. You don't get put on hold. You don't get escalated. Our customer service representatives are hired and highly trained to and empowered to solve your problem. The other thing is pricing. Our pricing is what it is. It's on our website. It has never increased. There are no tricks. It's not, we're gonna tell you one price, and then if you say you're gonna leave, we're gonna give you another. And in fact, our long-term view on pricing is that there is long-term pressure on it going down. And lastly, the Ting internet businesses are very much local networks. It's all about in that city, it's all about that local community, and we really work very closely with local stakeholders, with city officials, with local business groups, with residential groups like HOAs, to make sure that we are building and operating in a way that serves the needs of the community. This is, I just want to highlight, going back to fiber product, why this is so important, especially today. This is actually a screenshot from when we lit the first customer in Centennial, Colorado back in 2018. And this is the speed that you have both download and upload with a fiber product from Ting. And the reason that I'm calling this out is really to look at the upload, the 941.4 in the bottom. Throughout the pandemic, so many of us had to work from home. Whether you were working for a business, whether you had a home business, whether you're working for a local government, kids were working from home and we had to video conference. We had to upload large files for file sharing. And that requires upload, not just download. High downloads are great when you're downloading your videos from Netflix or Hulu or wherever, but when you want to participate in file sharing, video conferencing, if you're gaming, kids that are gamers, that upload is equally important, and that's what you get with fiber. This is a wonderful endorsement from Stephanie Pico, the current mayor of Centennial. When Centennial opted to work with Ting, they actually had a pretty exhaustive evaluation process where they put out a request for information. They had a number of respondents. They actually did a due diligence trip with us where they came out and they visited 3 of our existing networks and markets in North Carolina, Virginia, and Maryland, and spoke with local government officials and stakeholders in those markets before they decided to go with Ting. I also wanted to highlight, I know a lot of you represent businesses, some of the business products that we offer. We, like any of our worthy competitors, have a comprehensive suite of enterprise and small business solutions, depending on what works best for that particular group. We also do a lot of, we have some notable wireless network, installments where, for example, in Centennial, some of you may know the park in Centennial, we have a mesh Wi-Fi network there so that anyone that is visiting the park can utilize the Wi-Fi. We also do, for example, in Charlottesville, Virginia, we have a pedestrian mall that would be somewhat similar to the park, but we also do the football stadium for UVA and the basketball arena. Both of those have hundreds of mesh Wi-Fi access points, and they're utilized by users when they're actually at the games, to post to social media, and it's all about enhancing the brand of UVA in that particular case. Now I just want to talk a little bit about how we actually engage. When I talked about us being really important to us to engage locally, how we actually do that. First, Christine had asked me to talk a little bit about our fiber progress in Centennial. We began construction there in 2017. We lit our first customer in 2018. Today, we're about 70% finished past the premises in the city. We anticipate being finished in the spring. One of the things that we discovered, she asked me about challenges in that construction, is there's a lot of rock here. And we were initially doing a lot of deep underground trenching and boring, and that can be pretty slow going in this area of Colorado. We're now using a slightly faster deployment method that has accelerated the end part of our build there and is enabling us to build, and it will mean that future builds will be much faster as well. Something that I would say that we've also learned that has been wonderful. Centennial, when we first engaged with them, they really promoted themselves as a very entrepreneurial community. They said, and I quote, "no nonsense" in terms of working with the private sector. And that has really come to bear for us. When you're building an entire fiber optic network in a town, and we build universally throughout a town, it's an enormous amount of work in terms of the permitting, submitting the permitting, in terms of the reviews of permitting to make sure that we're doing everything so that we're not going to hit anything underground, so that everything's going to look great aesthetically when we finish, and that we're doing it according to all local, state, and other regulations. And Centennial absolutely recognized the amount of work they were going to take on, and they have been incredible at processing those applications seamlessly and working with us I will give them full credit, in a no-nonsense fashion. So that is something that has been a great experience for us. Something else that I do want to mention, benefits to communities. I think this was really something that hit home directly to everyone during the pandemic, is the importance to individuals of having great, robust, secure home internet. Internet is really, there are lots of studies linking increased GDP, increased productivity, and employment growth when there is a fiber optic network universally in a community. It is known to attract and retain existing businesses and enable small businesses and medium businesses, including home businesses, to grow. It also, as we all know, enables robust working from home. And why that's really important to businesses now is what we saw. Certainly, my business closed our office doors on March 8th of 2020, and we all went home. And fortunately, where I live, I have gigabit fiber internet. It meant that my business, through me, had that resiliency. And so it really is important that employees also have robust home internet, not just at the business location itself. Also, for residential customers, people see this as an amenity. It's one of the top things people look for when they're looking to relocate. Somebody told me a funny story about their adult son looking for a place to live, and he, the first thing on his list was fiber optic internet when looking for a place to live. And his father said, "Well, you have to have good electricity and lights." And he said, "Yeah, whatever, Dad. My most important thing is fiber internet." So that is something, and also there are studies linking about a 3% increase in property value when there's a home fiber internet connection. And lastly, of course, it's great for education and healthcare delivery, especially aging in place services. Having robust home internet works for that. The other things that we do with working locally, I have here, we sponsor a lot of local events. You can see in the pictures there, that's actually Mark Otto, who's the Ting city manager in Centennial with a school group. We're sponsoring a local school initiative there, and we do a lot of things like that locally. We also do a lot of local events with HOAs to make sure that residents understand what it is that we're bringing. They get to know us. They are, managing the expectations around construction and any disruption that may happen. Top right, that picture is when we lit the first customer in Centennial. Those are Centennial employees and elected officials. It's very important for us to do joint publicity, to share in the win of creating a fiber network in the community. And the picture on the bottom is our brand new data center in Centennial, Colorado, which we're very proud of, which is going to be an important local resource for us in building and operating our network. So that's really summarizes how we operate locally. I mentioned we do a lot of proactive work with the city itself and with local business groups to make sure that when we come in that that everyone is aware what we're doing, the benefits to the community, answer any questions they may have about what we're doing. We also do those neighborhood events, and we do regular communications with anyone that is looking to be a prospective customer with us. So lastly, Christine asked me to talk about potential expansion. What I would say is we're definitely interested in expanding in the region. If you represent a business or you're a resident or an official and you would like us to look into coming to your town, please come and talk to us afterwards. Some of my colleagues are here at a table in the corner. I have to unfortunately leave to catch a flight, but they will be here and will be very keen to talk to you if you have any questions about Ting generally, or if you're interested in pursuing conversations about expansion. So that's everything from me. I also have here are all of our emails. There's some contact for future information. We also have a Ting in the Community brochure, which we can forward out to you and is also available on our website. Thank you.
Monica, can you stay a little bit for if there's any questions right now? Okay, any questions from anyone here on high-speed internet, broadband, your community? Okay. Yep, there's the contact information, and I can totally confirm that businesses that are looking to expand or relocate into regions are always looking for high-speed internet and broadband access. 90% of the companies that come through the State Economic Development Office or the Metro Denver EDC are asking for that specific asset in a community, and it's really nice to be able to say that Denver South has it. So thank you, Monica. Appreciate your time. Next, I want to introduce Nick Jimenez. Nick has been involved with Denver South for a long time. We've had great meetings with him. He's a great partner for us. Nick is Comcast Director of Government Affairs, especially for the South Metro Denver and Southern Colorado regions. In this role, he's responsible for regulatory, franchising, political, and public policy matters. So he's a great asset, especially on policy stuff. He's just so knowledgeable. I love listening to him. And he's also a community ambassador. He's currently vice president of the Goal Academy High School Board of Directors, sits on the South Metro Denver Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, and on the Board of Governors and Government Affairs Council for the Colorado Springs Chamber and EDC. He is also a member of the South Suburban Parks and Rec Department's Public Art Committee. He's a really good community asset for us, and welcome, Nick.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. And I was laughing with Tom. These bios, these titles sound so much better on paper, but my kids aren't usually that impressed when that comes up, and that's top of mind. Today was my daughter's first day of school, and actually my son's. He gets to go in a little bit late, but I'm glad that I had time to take her to the bus before coming here. So good morning, everyone. It's good to see so many friends from the region, from Lone Tree, from Centennial, from Castle Pines, and others. I'm here to talk just a little bit about Comcast and what we've been doing in the community recently, which is quite a bit. Let me go back here one slide. So as I talk about Comcast in the region in Colorado, I think it's nice to start off by saying that I've been in Colorado for 3 years. Before that, I was in Philadelphia. So when we look at Comcast corporate structure, we have 9,000 employees in the state of Colorado. The overwhelming majority of those are here in the Denver South region. I'm sure you all see our offices as you drive by, which I'm eager to get back to. We'll see when that's going to happen. Philadelphia is our headquarters. Colorado is second only to the state of Pennsylvania in terms of the number of employees that Comcast has. And with that, you know, there's a lot on this slide in terms of what our investments are, certainly a lot in local taxes, fees, permits, et cetera. But the one I want to call out is our investment in infrastructure. That's $1.3 billion in infrastructure and technology just over the last 3 years. That's what allows us to double our network capacity approximately every 18 to 24 months. That's so that we can stay ahead of what's been going on in terms of demand for internet. And as we think about what's happened over the last 18 months, I think the appropriate way to frame what COVID did to our networks was really the largest stress test in the history of the internet. And when you look at the rest of the world, you know, you have some folks that will sometimes talk about, hey, the internet's faster or the internet's cheaper in this country or that country. But here in the United States, American networks held up during the toughest stress test ever without having to throttle internet speeds, without having to go to YouTube and Netflix like our European counterparts did to say, hey, can you reduce your picture quality? Because our networks literally can't handle that traffic. So a real point of pride what American networks have done over the last 18 months. And I'll talk a little bit more about the network later on in terms of specifics, but I'd love to start with talking about our investments in local communities. That's my passion. That's why I volunteer locally. Before I was doing this job, I was doing partnerships with nonprofit organizations out of our headquarters. So just here, right, 44+ million of in-cash and in-kind contributions. Fantastic. A lot of that is PSA airtime, public service announcement airtime to promote the good work of local nonprofit organizations. The program I was working on in Philadelphia before moving here is called Internet Essentials. I have a slide on that. I'll talk more about the details of it, but essentially 500,000 Coloradans, low-income Coloradans, have been connected to the internet through this program in 10 years. That program has never increased its price, but it has increased its speed and increased the program benefits significantly over time. When we talk about Internet Essentials, that's home internet. So if you can't afford home internet, if you get any kind of federal benefits, we want you to know that this program exists as an option for you to get online. But today, we all know not everybody has stability in their housing. Not everybody has a safe, quiet place where they live to get online, do their schoolwork, do their remote work, things like that. That's why during COVID, we doubled down on our commitment to bridge the digital divide and launched this program called Lift Zones. It's a really cool initiative. Our CEO suggested it and really drove the passion behind it. We announced 1,000 of these. We want to complete 1,000 lift zones by the end of 2021. So a lift zone is a nonprofit or a rec center or some other kind of community anchor institution where we come in and we put in a fiber internet connection, gig per second speeds, so that at no cost to the host organization, they can open up their facility to the community so that students come in and do remote learning, so that veterans come in and access the VA benefits online, so that all citizens, regardless of their housing status, have an opportunity to get online. You know, and I should probably update this slide, but we made a commitment recently to invest $1 billion with a B over the next 10 years to connect 50 million people to the internet. So as great as everything that we've done in the past is, I think it's fair to say we're just getting started, and I look forward to seeing what we can announce next. Relatedly, on the social justice front, diversity, equity, and inclusion are very important to the company. You know, I actually served as the founding chair for Unidos, which is our Hispanic and Latino employee resource group when that launched in Philadelphia. So that was 8 years ago, I think it was, 9 years ago, that we launched that program. Since then, we've learned a lot. Obviously, the country has had a continued conversation. So last year, we announced a $100 million commitment over 3 years to support social justice. And the program I want to highlight is called Comcast Rise. So here you have a great snazzy marketing piece for it, but I'll sum it up by saying small businesses were the most impacted during COVID. Minority-owned small businesses were the most impacted within that community. So how can we support them? Here's where we really lean on our company's expertise. And we decided to launch this program that has two main components. We have a subsidiary called Effective, used to be known as Comcast Spotlight, local cable television advertising. So what we do with this program of Rise is either through Effective or through our Comcast business brand, which I'm sure you all are familiar with, internet, phone, et cetera, to businesses. So on the Effective front, if your business needs some marketing support, we'll come in and film a commercial for you, and we'll air that commercial in your local market so that we can attract customers to your business. On the Comcast business side, we'll come in and do a technology evaluation, make sure that you have the right infrastructure in your facility for your folks to be online, for your phones, et cetera, for your security. But it even goes a little bit further into your website. So if your website needs a little bit of a refresh, we have technology consultants that'll come in and refresh that website. All of this to drive business to your small business. We just closed, I think it's the third round of applications. We've had a lot of local recipients. Raisa's Brewery is one that I'm a particular fan of, but there's been dozens and dozens of business throughout the region in Colorado. And once one funding cycle closes, another one opens up. So if you all know of any minority-owned small businesses, please encourage them, ComcastRise.com. The application is incredibly straightforward, and we'd love to see more local businesses involved in that. So I talked a little bit about Internet Essentials, and I want to go into a little bit more detail. 500,000 almost Coloradans connected in 10 years. 10 million throughout the United States, accompanied by a $700 million investment in digital literacy. Here's the conversation that I think is so important for us to have. When we talk about digital equity, when we talk about the digital divide, right now there's all this important work going on around infrastructure build. It's critical. I'm not going to gloss over that. We need to build where there is no networks, right? That's table stakes. But there is an important conversation around access versus adoption. So access is the ability to have a connection if you want it, right? So your home is able to be connected if you want it to be connected. Adoption is, in fact, a larger issue when you think about the United States. The folks that aren't connected to the internet in the United States, a majority of them are not connected despite the ability to connect to high-speed internet in their community. And so what are the barriers to adoption once you get past the access issue? And so we talk about this really as a three-legged stool. Yes, the price is certainly a barrier. That's why Internet Essentials exists. It's $9.95 a month. There's no contract. There's no credit check. There's no cost for standard installations. You can apply even if you don't have a social security number or you don't want to give us one. This program includes the Wi-Fi router. There's no additional cost. It's $9.95 a month. That's what we launched at 10 years ago. That's what it is today. 50 megabits per second download speeds, 5 megabits per second upload speeds. This is a program meant to get anybody who can afford that $10 a month online. But the price isn't where the issue stops. You also have the hardware, right? So a computer is a critical part. If you don't have that right piece of technology, you can't get online or you can't do anything with that connection. So we partner with Dell, and all Internet Essentials customers can get a new computer, a brand new computer, for under $150 to make sure that they have that hardware. The third piece is arguably the most important piece and where I think all of us in this room can make the biggest impact. It's a combination of issues around digital literacy and around fear, right? So this idea that I don't need the internet, I'm afraid of hackers or viruses or all of that, and really I just don't know how to use it, right? So that's why we partner with nonprofit organizations. We host training videos online. We do everything we can to overcome those barriers. We partnered with the Colorado Attorney General recently to do more of that training, and we're always looking for partners that are willing to get that word out and help folks not just get connected, but maximize the benefit. As a little bit of an aside, I have 3 young kids, and every once in a while I hear this idea of, well, they're digital natives. I'm sure you've heard that term, right? Kids today, they're just born with an iPad in their hands. They know how to use it. It's just factually incorrect. You give a kid a device like that, and they may know how to pull up YouTube and spend 8 hours watching videos, not that that ever happens at my house. The reality is, for them to maximize the benefits of the internet, you need to sit next to them and you need to explain how they can access educational resources. So even this concept of digital natives still benefit from digital literacy training and making sure that we know how to maximize that connection. So I said I'd talk a little bit more about our network, and certainly want to talk about our response to COVID. $15 billion in investment nationally since 2017, just making sure we keep folks connected no matter what goes on. But here's a little bit more detail about what actually happened during COVID, and I find this fascinating because our headquarters network team was able to share some of this data. So traffic patterns, interestingly, we talk a lot about the difference between upload and download speeds. This is actual data from throughout 2020, not from before COVID. This is COVID data, 14 times more downstream traffic than upstream traffic. So it's something we continue to monitor. We're working hard on that front, but even despite Zoom, even despite all of video conferencing, traffic patterns remained highly asymmetrical during COVID. In terms of peak internet traffic, 32% increase. Hard to fathom what that is, but the number on the far right, 1 trillion DNS lookups, essentially internet requests, website requests per day, terabyte per seconds of downloads. I mean, just incredible amounts of internet traffic during COVID. And again, I think a real shining spot for the United States and for our network infrastructure that we held up. So what's the future of the cable network? As some of you may know, our infrastructure consists of a hybrid fiber and coaxial network that delivers high-speed internet to our customers, both business and residential. Currently, we offer 1 gig download speeds throughout our Colorado footprint, so any resident that has access to the Comcast Xfinity network can get gig per second speeds without any construction to their house, without digging up any sprinklers or otherwise impacting their property. What we're looking to do in the future is, through significant network upgrades, through all digital infrastructure, through advanced network architecture, and a technology initiative called DOCSIS 4.0, which I'm not going to bother explaining. I think the key takeaway here is it's just network evolution that allows us to increase our network speeds. We are already successfully testing in Denver 4 gig symmetrical speeds over the existing network, meaning without major construction, without major impact to roadways, to property owners, or anybody, we're able to swap some network architecture and deliver 4 gig symmetrical speeds. That's coming up in the near future. But all of that is on the path to 10G, right? So the path, the map here is 10 gig symmetrical speeds over an existing hybrid fiber coax network. I think that's the pride that I have, that we are able to maximize infrastructure investments in order to be able to deliver these speeds. And that's it for me. Here's my contact info, and of course, always happy to answer questions if I have any time left. Tom? Yes, sir.
Do you consider veteran-owned businesses minority?
Do I consider what?
Veteran-owned businesses.
No, sir. No, minority meaning people of color, so Black, Indigenous, Latino, Asian. We have lots of great programs to support veterans, and I'd love to see diverse veterans qualifying for RISE, but it's not independently a criteria.
I've got a mic if we have other questions.
I think folks want to network, Tom.
I think so. They probably want breakfast. So they probably want me to shut up and sit down. Nick, thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Well, thank you all for coming. I'd like to thank Nick and Monica for their presentations today and Congressman Crow for his presentation. Thank you all for being here. It's great to see everyone in person. I do have a few quick announcements, and I'll let you back to networking and some more breakfast. I do want to recognize all of our elected officials. I was going to go through and try to name them all, but I'm not going to do that because I'm going to miss somebody and I'm going to embarrass myself. So if I could have all the elected officials please stand. We appreciate your service. I know these have been very challenging times, so I really appreciate it. And on behalf of the organization, thank you for all your service. Number two, we do have, there's several ways. You have a little piece of paper on your table. This one I've scribbled on mine a bit, but if you look on there, there's a number of ways you can engage with Denver South. We are looking for some active community involvement and certainly business involvement in a couple of our transportation programs. We've got our employee transportation champions. That's a group of business leaders that get together to work through transportation challenges for their communities, and we bring in the Denver South TMA to help work with a lot of those programs to educate employees as well as to devise other alternative strategies for getting folks there, and would love to have more members of that. It's a group that meets fairly regularly and has been doing some great work. I know Comcast is one of our members there. Would love to have others join us. We're also rolling out a program in the coming months, Work, which is really a transition back to a hybrid environment. So as we come out of COVID, as employers begin to confront the challenges going back to the work environment and dealing with the competition for talent and inevitable need to do some hybrid environment, we've got a fair amount of materials there that basically allow you to roll the program out and provide a great deal of structure to provide comfort to both the employees and the employers that it's being done properly. And lastly, we do have a neat event coming up next month with Project Nexus, our entrepreneurial marketplace. And as Monica mentioned, as Nick mentioned, we've got a thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem here in the Denver South region. And we have an event coming up next month in September over at the Thrive Workplace, Thrive Co-working Place, with one of our partners, Riot, which is a successful accelerator program out of North Carolina. So we'd love to have you join us at that or other Nexus events. So with that, those are our big three ones. We do have the next one coming up. The next one, partnership meeting, is coming up in October. It's the first Thursday. We're going to go back on the regular schedule. We did move this one. Apologies for screwing around with your schedules. We did move this one to try to accommodate some elected officials. We had hoped to have potentially some of the senators here, but they were unable to as they're still in session working through the bill right now, as you heard. But we will be back on schedule the first Thursday in October, so look forward to having you join us there. And with that, I'm going to let you go. Thank you all. Thank you all for who joined us online for joining us. Thank you all for being here in person, and please have some more breakfast. Otherwise, Alex is going to be eating breakfast stuff for the next month. So please grab some breakfast and feel free to network and chat for a few minutes. Thank you again.